Why can't humans learn from the past to improve their future? So why do I exist to suffer? Why can't humans learn from the past to improve their future? I think from the Islamic perspective, we don't exist to suffer. We exist to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So that's why human beings, in the wisdom of Allah, were created, so we can worship and come to know Him. But that question also assumes that suffering is a bad thing. It's a bad thing. It's a bad thing, definitely. But remember, I gave the quote with Imam al-Qurtubi at the beginning, that Allah is governing the world on His wisdom, not on our wisdom, with His Jalla wa Ala knowledge and power and wisdom, not our finite intellects. So we can't say that, we can't make a comparison between a world in which there was no suffering because there was no moral, because that has a lot of implications. That means we don't have emotions, we're not ensouled beings, we don't have free will, I can see it has a lot of implications to it. How can we make a judgment that a world in which there was no suffering is better than a world in which there is suffering? You can't make that valuation, because with the suffering, to have a world with suffering is a world in which to have free will, in which to have emotions, where you can also have love, which you can have, these things that are necessary in order to be the kind of human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to become and be moulded as. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, why assume that suffering is a bad thing? You can't just take it out as a component part of the world, because with it comes other things that are corollary, that come with it. You take suffering out, you have to also take emotions out. Take emotions out, you have to take volition out. You take volition out when we're not free human beings. If we're not free human beings, then we're we're robots. So in essence, we're trying to say a world in which there are just robots is better than a world in which there are free creatures. Well, how can you make that judgment, a value judgment? Can you see? It was a question that the angels asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? Because angels don't have that free will in the way human beings do. يَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They just do what they're commanded to do. So why assume suffering is bad? Why assume suffering has no purpose? But again, because we're looking at it from our finite intellects. Allah in His divine wisdom knows that suffering may have a purpose. I might not know what that purpose is in the long run, in the short run or the long run. But that doesn't mean to say there isn't a purpose. Maybe the suffering and the struggle in life, again, it could be for what we call pedagogical purposes, to make us our nufus better. Therapeutic, to make our nufus better, or to be pedagogical, to educate us, to make us know about the gratitude, to have more gratitude to Allah when we see suffering and pain. Allah, thank you for security. Oh Allah, because of the hardships and suffering, Allah, thank you for giving us, the comfort that others don't have. So it could be pedagogical in that way, because we learn from the opposites, right? So therapeutic, it could be that through suffering and endurance and resilience, you become a better nafs. And this was the view of Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi rahimahullah. Is dotted all around his tafsir, that for you to become a nafs, a better nafs, you have to be forged in the fire of hardship, in the furnace of hardship. You've got to struggle. You've got to struggle and be put under those tests, so you can grow to be that soul before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's strengthened. So anyone of you, who go, do regular exercising with the gym, or if you're an athlete, you will know, isn't it, the hardship and the struggle, the physical, strenuous struggle they go through to reach their physical peak. Even like bodybuilders, when have to get to, I don't know what percent body fat, 6%, 5% body fat, which is even impossible to maintain all year round, but just for that particular event, they have to reach at that optimum physical peak. And they will tell you it's hard, it's a struggle to cut down on everything, and certain things you can't eat, weighing every food, every leaf of a salad you have to weigh that you have to eat, because it might add on. But to reach that physical peak, you have to do that. You have to put yourself under that endurance and struggle. Similarly, the nafs has to also be forged under struggle. so it become a better nafs. You see, so those are some possible reasons. There are others why, you know, suffering may be necessary, but you don't exist to suffer. Yeah? There's not, Allah didn't create the world as a torture chamber, but these are concomitant, these are necessary aspects of a being that's endowed with free will, with moral properties. Yeah, it's just a corollary. So, because we're not robots, there's no failure in robots. Because like the angels, there's no failure in them. Why? Because they just do what Allah tells them to do. Whereas for us, there's failure. There's failure. So anyway, so what I would do is I would turn it on someone who asks this question. If it's someone who's a Muslim, then definitely that's a different issue. But if it's a non-believer, turn it on them and say, well, actually, you know what? On my worldview, in Islam, I have a story for suffering. There's redemption. There's indemnification, there's reward. You know, the struggle has a meaning in a greater script and story. But on your worldview, just dust and dirt, isn't it? When you die, that's it. You know, with all respect, I mean, that's all you are. You dug 6 foot under and that's it. There isn't meaning to the suffering that you had or your relative or someone you know. So in the greater scheme of things, because we believe in an afterlife, we believe that it just doesn't stop here, the journey doesn't stop here. Allah will indemnify in the hereafter. Allah will recompense for that suffering. So on the Islamic worldview, you know, there's a restitution. There's a restitution, there's a reconciliation that's going to happen. Allah in His judgment, His wise judgment, is going to give everyone their due. So, but anyway, these issues about, I think, how, you know, I think Ustadh Safaruk is going to deal with that in his session, so I want to defer those questions there without anticipating too much. Okay, so I think the next question